The Shared Outcomes Fund Trees Outside Woodland research project ran 4 pilots testing different ways which this hugely important but often overlooked part of our treescape could be supported and re-established. In this film, you'll hear from the team of local authority project officers who ran the Trees on Farms pilot about what they learned along the way and what the data they gathered shows.
I'm Sophie Hamnett. I'm the project officer based in Chichester.
I'm Emma Cross. I'm the project officer based at the Norfolk County Council.
I'm Debbie Murray. I've been maternity cover for the project officer at Norwich.
I'm Ben. I'm one of the project officers for the Shared Outcome Fund project. I work with Cornwall Council, and we were leading on in the first few years on the Trees in the Farm landscape pilot, where we were exploring options as to how to get trees outside of woodlands that weren't supported by other means, so that they weren't funded by any other options. So we were given that freedom to try and test new approaches and different ideas as to how we could see about getting those trees which may be incidental to the farm business. They're not necessarily directly related to productivity when compared to what Nick was doing with agroforestry. And
Okay, I'm Nick Rolls. I work for Shropshire Council and I'm the project officer for Shropshire, and we have been leading in the first 2 years on agroforestry and orchards pilot, and then later on after that we merged agroforestry and orchards with trees in the farm landscape, called it Trees on Farms, and I've been leading on that with Ben.
So, and this is one of the, I suppose, ways the project evolved from years 1 and 2 to years 3 and 4, was that it also showed that, you know, if people had ideas for agroforestry, we could then have that conversation saying about, well, actually, to get a really good project or good growing environment there, you might need a shelter belt. You might need to improve the shelter around the edges. And actually, whilst you're doing that, let's go have an amazing benefit for wildlife and those type of things, wasn't there? So they could come at it from any direction, either from looking at the hedgerows, trying to do something from, I suppose, a conservation background or more ecological background, through to something where it's more productive orientated now. And I suppose with the agroforestry, we realised that there wasn't actually that much publicly available, was there, in terms of knowledge or, you know?
No, there was certainly a gap in knowledge, and I think we've filled that by having a website shared by the Tree Council with all the guides to agroforestry, the reports on there, and having us in post to go out and meet people. Yeah, some people know exactly what they want, but a lot of people are just going, I like to plant more trees for wildlife, but yeah, how does that work with my farm business, etc.?
And it still seems very much an evolving sort of area, doesn't it, as well? So yeah, I think that's been the nice thing about it. So one of the nice things about being a project officer, when you get invited to go and see somebody's land, they've got an idea that they want to share with you, and they might just be looking at one section of their field. And for me, sometimes I've gone to those places and I go, that's very nice. What about this over here? And you've either got this amazing resource, or, for me, I like old trees, and some sites where they've been interested in doing agroforestry or some other interventions. And I've noticed that they've got this amazing old treescape across their farm or across their land. And it's been a really great opportunity to then discuss with them about, okay, what these trees are, how important they are, how they might look after those, but also how we might think about getting some additional trees to replace those in the long term. So, and almost planting that seed, people have then sort of gotten on board with the idea and then start thinking, well, I can do that here, but actually I've also got other areas of the farm. You might want to come and have a look at this. And then, so it's really, and you might go there with one idea, but then you're coming out with...
You don't know until you go there.
Exactly.
Well. If they weren't having the visit, if you were just looking at a website and going, click for those trees and in that field, you wouldn't have someone who comes and go, you need a shelter belt across there to stop those southwesterly winds. Exactly.
And that's important. It's about contextualising that project, isn't it? Because it's also, it's all very well looking at an aerial photograph, but actually until you're in the landscape and actually seeing what's going on as well, you're not necessarily getting that interplay of what's going on in the landscape, are you? So having that importance of site visits really, really important in those sort of wider farm projects as well. I've found has been really important.
I think site visits are very important. I don't know about anyone else at the start. Because it was COVID, you couldn't go out on site. I did virtual site visits. They're a complete disaster. It doesn't work. You get a landowner to send you a little video of their field or some photos. It's not the same.
As I think we've all found, no one's size of scheme fits every farm. They're all different businesses, aren't they? And you need to be flexible. And our Trees on Farms grant scheme has done that, hasn't it? And we've got people coming back and saying, well, I was able to do this because it was so flexible, so easy, and you were there to support us. So it's worked, hasn't it? Yeah.
And that flexible nature of actually being able to offer the grant scheme to smaller landowners that, yes, just have a field, a little hobby farm, rather than just the big farmers and big landowners as well.
And it's been quite nice with some of those sites we've gone to. And for example, might have planted an orchard, and then actually they've spoken to their neighbour, and then the following year done another orchard there, and then they've spoken to the other person, they've done some other intervention, and so actually across that wider landscape there's been this amazing sort of growth in potential tree canopy cover just through all these people talking to each other.
So I had a farmer who was restoring all the trees that his grandfather and his father had cut down from the farm when they ran it. But he was also trying to influence the neighbouring farmers, because the neighbouring farmers had no trees. And so he was trying to be a bit of a role model, because they like to see what other people have done. And so he was being a bit of a role model in his area to influence other farmers that, you can still run a successful farm and have trees on it.
And I think that's been one of the things, actually demonstrate, when you sort of say tree planting, and some people would be a bit reluctant about removing land out of production because they think, oh, that's a lot of area. But actually, in reality, once it's actually been planted and they actually see it and they think, okay, that's not so bad really, or it's not as... I think they perceive maybe it being worse than it actually is. And
there's a lot of risk involved with farming a lot of the time, isn't it?
Totally.
And if someone's already taken that risk and shown it to work, you're much more likely to follow in there.
Yeah.
And when there's someone who is a farmer like yourself, rather than a government expert or a council employee coming along and telling them this is what you should do, they're much more likely to take it on, aren't they?
Yeah, and they can also impart, they also know their land in sometimes really in a nuanced fashion.
Well, that's when I'm going there. I'm mostly going there with an open mind. I don't go there going, right, I'm going to plant 200 acres of parkland. No one knows their farm better than them do. I'm helping them to realise the best outcome in terms of trees on their farm for them.
Yeah, and we had one farm where they came in. They started off very small, and then the following year they said, "Oh, I'm willing to do a bit more," because actually they saw it as a good deal for themselves.
Yeah,
they were willing to forego a portion of land. They got, just being blunt about it,
they got benefits from it.
They got benefits from it. They got a new fence line. So in some ways, it's very transactional there. But actually, they really enjoyed the process of doing it. It felt for them, they wanted to do something for climate change, but still wanted to be farming. So actually planting trees on their farm was a way to do that, but in a more realistic fashion. That worked for their farm business. Yeah.
And then it brings it back to the flexible nature of the scheme.
Yeah.
Quite a lot of grant schemes, you aren't able we'll plant 10 trees this year. If it goes well, great, next year we can look and do more. And actually we've done that. And it's so flexible to allow people to plant pretty much
what they try something out, can't you?
Exactly.
I always say to people when I go and visit, why not start small? You can do a few half a field this year. If it works out, then come back for more.
Some people have some really grand ambition.
Do you realise how many trees? But also that helps because we don't have a completely unlimited pot of money.
No.
So we can't spend tens and tens of thousands of pounds at one site. So we have to say, rein back your ideas a little bit. We might have more money next year, and then we can do more next year.
How much of the UK is 70%? Agricultural land? 70%. So 70% of the potential land is owned by farmers. That's a massive amount of land. And if you could be flexible and let them plant hedges or orchards or agroforestry, whatever they want, coppice, then you can tap into that massive resource of land, can't you?
There's only so much land that isn't particularly high grade that would be suitable for woodland planting, taking out production. So in that sense, if you want to produce food in this country, which government seems to want to do, and support nature, then agroforestry and orchards are possibly the way forward. Yeah.
And that was one of the.
Yes, sir.
I was just going to say that was one of the really interesting things for the first couple of years for Trees on the Farm landscape, is actually looking at the corners, the unproductive areas on a farm, the field corners, the in-hedge trees, expanding the depth of an existing hedgerow, little bits in the farm that are not productive that a farmer is happy to give up for trees.
Yeah, and it can also help provide that connectivity through a landscape between kind of woodland areas or so, if you can
Absolutely,
get more trees into the
Yeah.
aspect.
I've been really surprised by the amount of interest in tree planting for biodiversity and wildlife.
Yeah.
I initially thought it was going to be a hard-fought battle to get farmers to plant trees on the land, but a lot of them, certainly in the first few years, there's lots of them who want to plant them just for having the trees. And then if you can tell them, well, it helps provide shade for your cattle and sheep and boost your productivity.
Stop soil erosion.
The interesting thing on that, though, I suppose, is we do only work with farmers that want to plant.
Yeah.
So because we have a limited grant pot, it would be really interesting to see if the harder to reach farmers, or the farmers that need a little bit more encouragement, would be willing to plant as well. I don't know about you guys, but because the demand is there for farmers that do want to plant trees, those are the ones that I've been working with, rather than the farmers that are slightly more hesitant.
I agree with that. But we've been delivering the project now for 4 years, and there's still no drop off in demand, is there? So I think it's more, and word of mouth seems to be growing and growing. And as Debbie said before, farmers listen to other farmers. Yeah. You've got a few innovative farmers out there, a few demonstration farms, and then people going, oh, that works. We'll do that ourselves, yeah.
I think in some ways also it helps to create, if you do have those who are interested in tree planting, those that aren't, it helps to re-establish that more complicated landscape again. That complicated treescape that's got different things going on in different places, isn't it? Otherwise, we're never going to reach that point where it's all the same everywhere.
And we wouldn't want it to be all the same everywhere either.
And that, when you look back, and that's been a really engaging point with some farmers, when you sort of show them what was, and that realisation of what has been lost. Sometimes when they're, even it should be incremental and insidious, that creeping baseline, isn't it? It's cool.
Yeah, I had a site a couple of years ago that wanted to put back in all the historic hedgerows, and that was a really nice project to offer, because it's like that. You look at the maps, you look at what did exist. Their grandfather, I think, stripped out all the hedgerows, and now they're putting them all back in, based on the original field boundary.
But I can sort of understand maybe why they were there as well in some places. And
so if we're considering what farmers can bring to agroforestry, I think they are the key, aren't they? Really, there was a lot of interest. I've been surprised how much interest there is in farmers and they may be the pioneers we're reaching now. But I think the more momentum it gathers, then the more that will influence the not so interested farmers as well. So I think the future's quite bright.
So a lot of traditional grant or conventional agri-environment schemes or agri-environment grant schemes are a competitive process as well. So, nice thing about this is that we weren't necessarily benchmarking it against other projects. It's almost partly that might have been because of the first come first served basis we had, and the limited time frames we were having to work in. So we responded maybe to those early adopters or people who knew about or caught wind of us earlier on. But that competitive process can certainly maybe put people off, or it increases time frames and things like that. So
the existing grant schemes are very restricted to quite often, weren't they?
I was going to say,
you had to go for a certain size of shelter belt, had to be 20 metres wide or less than 20 metres wide. And whereas we would just say, however you want to get trees on your farm, we'll find a system that works for you.
And that's understandable when it's a centrally controlled system, isn't it? And you just have to administer something nationally. Yeah. But I think that's the beauty about the fact we're all working within our own local authorities, is that we can make that more nuanced judgment, can't we?
We had a lot of people in Norfolk who they weren't necessarily farmers, but they had a larger area of land that they'd brought and maybe had some horses or something, and they wouldn't have been able to apply for conventional grants.
They wouldn't be eligible, would they?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, that was changed slightly now, hasn't
Okay,
it? With the changes since BPS has been wound out. But the previous grant scheme precluded a large number of people.
And it wasn't too time consuming, was it?
No, the application process. Yeah.
And they heard
feedback we
quite
got
quickly.
That was really good. Yeah.
We were
quite quickly.
for us. We were willing to take on some of that process as a project officer. So I did a lot of the stuff in the background sometimes. So if we had a site, I could quickly do, for example, designation checks just to make sure that the site that we were looking at was suitable to start off with. And then if it wasn't, then we could have that initial discussion off the bat with the landowner as to maybe why it might not be, or maybe we might need to think about a different area.
Just creating the maps for them, that kind of thing. If they want a hedgerow, takes me a few seconds to measure a hedgerow or the edge of a field on.
Well, you say that. We've now got the land app tool, agroforestry tool. When if a landowner has an SBI number, single business identifier, they can create their own farm plan. We've got exactly where they want the trees on the farm in any sort of system, different system. You can measure the amount of trees in the row and work out how much it will cost. It's just like, it's a game changer, really. And we identified this through the Trees on Farms as something we wanted to do to help enable more agroforestry.
Yeah, and for those people who are tech literate, are willing to look into that, isn't it? And in some cases, you were saying earlier, actually trying to do virtual tours was painful, and actually it was quicker, was it, to go out, do the map, sort out the people, and less burdensome and more straightforward just to take control of it, wasn't it?
And it's just really nice to be able to help people through that process. Great if they're technologically literate, but if they have if they can't use tech as well, I've been given kind of hand-drawn maps of what they want to plant and where.
It all works.
And it's fine, isn't it?
And it's absolutely fine. I can then create a digital map for them, can work like that and help them through the application process in a much more comprehensive way.
I think I found most people need at some point help in the application process. So you might be really, you might have a really clear idea of what you want to plant and know the system, but not be very good with the application process or the tech. Or you might be really good on that side, but you need the advice on the trees or something else. Like there's kind of different people need to help with different stages.
Especially when it comes to fruit trees and when you're picking varieties and different root stocks for your area and your soil, then there's a lot of technical advice. Even as a project officer, I will pass them on to someone like in Shropshire, Tom Adams, who's an expert, but we can often help the initial conversations.
I think from all the site visits I've done, going to Shropshire and Kent and the farmers I've dealt with, my overwhelming feeling is that we weren't telling them what we wanted them to plant. We were saying, we'd like you to plant trees, how do you want to plant them? And so each farmer had different circumstances, wanted to get trees in the ground but had different circumstances, and we could enable them to do what they want rather than tell them what to do.
And the research backs that up. When we monitored people, they'd said overwhelmingly, we've helped them get the type of trees on the farm system on their farm that they wanted. And it was only because we were in post that that's happened.
Yeah. I think it's really important to recognise that farmers and farming isn't just one thing. It's such a broad spectrum, isn't it? And you've got different types of farmers doing different things all the time. So having...
with different priorities.
Oh, definitely, be it from market gardeners through to livestock farmers, arable farmers, different scales, different parts of the country. Cornwall's completely different to parts of Norfolk and Chichester and Shropshire and Kent. So having that understanding that, every farmer is different and every farm is different is really important, and that will then, help create that different treescape or different projects that we spin up.
And all of their reasons for planting are
good ones.
Yeah, they're all their own reasons for planting, and it's great when it links up to woodlands to create a kind of a habitat network. But if they also want to plant because their grandkids like playing in a particular field, that's also a valid reason for planting. And it's really nice to be able to understand the individual reasons for planting because they are all different.
It's important to recognise their reason.
Yeah.
If they take ownership of that planting, they're going to make work, aren't they?
Yeah.
And it's just nice.
And it's a very personal thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I think people have got to want to do it from a personal level as well, because it requires such commitment.
They're not just doing it to get a pot of money in, are they?
No.
There's got to be another motivation there, hasn't there?
But we've proven that as well, because as the grants have changed over the years, we've asked for different levels of contribution from the farmers. So for the scheme, one of the schemes this year, we've said, yes, we'll contribute 100% cost of the trees, but only 50% cost of fencing, mulch, labour, protection. And farmers have said, yes, please, let's still go ahead. And because it is their reason for planting, they're happy to pay that financial contribution as well.
Demand hasn't dropped off,
No.
which we thought it might do, yeah.